everybody, I'm back with another video. It's Noah with No&Co, and today we'll just be doing not an intro video, but just another sort of intro video with my vinyl collection. While it's not huge, I have a decent start up to it, and I've been doing it for the last 3 years, I want to say, but I really got into it in this last year and a half to two, and been getting as many as I can. And so I'm here to show that off a little bit. First, starting off, we have something a little bit off kilter from what you might expect, but we have the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack for all my people that love anime out there or like anime. This is one of my favorite soundtracks of all anime. And this beautiful brown vinyl that it comes with. One of my favorite animes, adventurous space cowboy. This soundtrack is very jazz, blues. It makes you think of a space cowboy. It's really cool. It really fits with the aesthetic of the show really well, and one of my favorite soundtracks that complements a show, makes you feel like you're kind of there when you're listening to it. A great vinyl for just doing stuff around the house. Coming up next, kind of a classic one, we got Eagles' Desperado, one of their first albums that they had out. You can see that this one's a little used, and it's got the little rips on the top. This was a gift from my dad, who's a huge Eagles fan, and being that, I've become an Eagles fan myself. While Hotel California might be their best, as people consider it, this might be my favorite, just because it holds tracks like Tequila Sunrise and Desperado and Outlaw Man, which are some of my favorite Eagles tracks that they have. And just holding those three tracks really makes it maybe my favorite album. I love this cowboy aesthetic of the Desperado, cowboy aesthetic of the album cover. Very rustic. Pretty cool album. Cool vinyl. Next, Travis Scott, Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. This album gets criticized, I think, a little too much. Maybe not criticized, but I see a lot of mixed thoughts on this album online when you read about what people think about it, because he has albums like Astroworld and Rodeo, which seem like two top powerhouse albums that kind of can't be topped. This is kind of sitting in the middle, but I honestly have a sweet spot for this album. I love tracks like Way Back. I love tracks like Beebs in the Trap. I love tracks like Pick Up the Phone. I love tracks like The Ends. I love tracks like Through the Late Night. I think there's great features on it. I think they complement Travis really well. And while some people say that it's kind of like Rodeo leftovers, I really disagree. I think he creates a world with this album, and different from Rodeo, different from Astroworld, that doesn't get recognized enough. And this is one of my favorite Travis projects. Well, I think Astroworld might be my favorite. This might be number 2. I love Rodeo a lot, don't get me wrong, but this album came out at a certain time and was a lot of fun to listen to it when it first came out. Let me hate on the Kendrick feature in this one. Just one of my favorite Kendrick features we hear, especially from this time. You hear all the fun inflections in his voice that he does more recently now, but something you didn't hear a ton from Kendrick back then. One of my favorite Travis albums, a little bit overhated. Check it out if you haven't re-listened to it in a while. Next, Faces, Mac Miller. One of my favorite vinyls I own, not for the fact that even how good it is, but for the fact how pretty these vinyls are, with the yellow coloring to the vinyls and the different inserts being green, and there's a pink one and purple one. This is probably my favorite mixtape ever. In the mixtape catalog there is, or at least one of them. It's such a definition of abstract hip-hop to me, with all the different loopy and strange production we get, the goofy kind of out-of-here bars that don't seem in Mac fashion. I got into it a little bit later because I was pretty young when this came out, but I know at the time that when this came out, it was something that Mac hadn't really done yet, or you hadn't heard from him yet. And so to hear things like Colors and Shapes and Angel Dust, and It Doesn't Matter with that 1.5-minute long sample from a movie at the start, and just all the crazy and weird things that he kind of gets into on this mixtape is, for me, super cool to hear, and crazy things to hear on this album, especially now that we know the story of Mac. But one of my favorite vinyls, like I said, with just the art and the prettiness of the vinyl itself. One of my favorite Mac projects there is. Something that I can never get enough of or never stays out of rotation. Yeah, Faces, Mac Miller. Can't say enough about it. Next I have Untitled Unmastered by Kendrick Lamar. While it's not his most talked about or known projects that he's released, it's one that I thought would be super cool on vinyl. I got this for a gift. It's just got some tracks on here that I can never get away from, like Untitled 07 with Elevate, that almost one of his best bangers in my opinion. Untitled 04 with another SZA collab that I can't get enough of. SZA and Kendrick collabs always do it for me, and one of my favorite duos that ever come out with music. Untitled 02, which is another just great song with great messaging. There's a lot of songs that come across as kind of To Pimp a Butterfly leftovers or things that didn't get on their track list, but to me, the rawness of the unmastered tracks really hits for me, and I thought it would be a really cool thing to have on vinyl, and one of my favorites I own just because it's a little bit of a different vinyl to have. You don't see this very often. Next, I have One Mono Groove. This is a 1976 jazz funk album, jazz funk fusion album. Well, in the last year and a half, I want to say, I've been really getting into Japanese city pop and Japanese jazz. This I saw at the record store and I had never heard it before, and so I wanted to check it out and see what it was all about, and it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of classical Japanese jazz sounds in there that you won't get anywhere else. Something that I like to throw on when I'm cleaning or cooking something or something like that. It's a great record to have. Japan probably holds some of my favorite jazz that there is. I don't listen to an immense amount of jazz, but when I do, it's usually Japanese jazz. Next, I have Flower Boy by Tyler, the Creator. Tyler, the Creator being one of my favorite artists ever. I have a lot of favorite albums that come out by Tyler, but this is probably my favorite one. Igor and Call Me If You Get Lost might be tied for 2, especially with the deluxe of Call Me If You Get Lost. That definitely pushes it up there. But Flower Boy has to be my favorite. I've never seen an album's track list relate to the album cover better than this one does. When you hear the track list or hear the songs on the track list, you think of summertime and walking around in big fields and just being free and things along that nature. You have songs like Boredom, 911 Mr. Lonely, See You Again, November, Garden Shed. Just some of Tyler's best, in my opinion, easily some of Tyler's best. And to me, there's not a single skip on the album. Even tracks like Where the Flower Blooms with Frank on it. Just some of my favorite Tyler work there is. And to have this on vinyl was one I needed, a necessity, and was one of the first ones I got. And if you're a vinyl nerd, you know that the inserts are sometimes the best. And the inserts for this one, super cool, super good wall art that you can use. I don't have them right now, so I can't show you, but super cool stuff. Next, this one's actually unopened, but next I have Bob Marley and the Wailers, Greatest Hits. I got this for a gift as well. My dad's also a Bob Marley fan, and so growing up I've heard a good amount of songs off this track list with being the best of. I will say I haven't done my super deep research into his discography itself, going album for album, but his music will live on forever, and that's just the way it is. He's got legendary songs, and he did so much for music, and not even just music, but the world and politics itself. He's got a lot of great messaging in his songs, and a lot of his stuff just really gives you peace and makes you think about things. Super cool to hear from a person making music at the time like he was. This one I got pretty recently, that's why it's unopened, but I'm excited to spin it here soon. Next we have Mac DeMarco, Salad Days, one of my favorite indie alternative records. His jangly guitar playing is always so addicting to me. The islandy, the summer vibe he brings off. But his songwriting is on a different level almost, with it kind of being melancholy and sad at times. And some people aren't a huge fan of his voice, saying he doesn't have a great singing voice, but I think his voice, in my opinion, really complements the way his instrumentals play along, and to me fits perfectly. His somber, kind of not too intense singing really fits that jangly guitar he plays. I love this inside cover art of his inside studio. Super cool album, Mac DeMarco, Salad Days. If you haven't heard, go listen to it, but I'm sure you have. Next, another one of my favorite alternative albums, alternative pop more though, Demon Days, The Gorillaz. Songs like Feel Good Inc., Dare, just never fail to get me dancing and moving around and having a good day. They're always, you can never play Feel Good Inc. around me and me not turn it all the way up and sing every word. Verses from Del the Funky Homo Sapien really hit on this album. I love the concept of this band too in general, of them kind of being all just different characters that aren't people, and they're all animated, and it brings in kind of this movie TV show sense of this band. Songs like November Has Come, Never Get Old, Kids with Guns have just great messaging to them as well, and I just can't get enough of this album. I don't think it'll ever fall out of rotation. There's just legendary tracks on this thing, and probably one of my favorite albums ever. It's great. Yeah, one of my favorite vinyls I own, with songs like Texas Blue and Guide Dog and Dust Cutter and Way Too Many Friends. Just some of my favorite songs from Quadeca, and I've never been more excited for somebody's output more than Quadeca. His albums Haunt You and this album Scrapyard just really, I've never had albums hit home for me like these ones do. And I'm super excited for what the future has to come for Quadeca. Probably my favorite younger artist right now, and super excited for everything he does. Scrapyard. Next I have Good AM by Mac Miller. Probably my favorite studio album from Mac, either this or Swimming. The production is really put together. My favorite features from Mac's discography come on this, with features like Chief Keef on Cut the Check, or Ab-Soul on Two Matches, or Miguel singing on Weekend, or even Tyler's slight production on Doors. Super cool stuff from Mac here. This whole kind of concept of him finally waking up and realizing he's got to balance the life that he's living with the fame and still keeping his friends and family close to him and things that he cares about close to him is also really cool to listen to and hear from Mac. And also got this for a gift recently, and it's the special edition green vinyl, which came out at the same time as the Faces vinyls came out, with that beautiful green on it. I love it. Bright green, as they'd say. Next I have Neruvian Doom by MF Doom and Bishop Nehru, which is from 2014. I picked this up at a record store. I had never heard it before. I'm a big MF Doom fan, so I thought a Doom project I haven't heard before. Let me pick this up. And most of the vocals, I was surprised, were done by Bishop Nehru, who at the time, super up-and-coming and young rapper that nobody had really heard of yet, getting put on by MF Doom's production, which I thought was really cool. A lot of people think that MF kind of carries the project with his production, but I disagree. He's got Doom in his corner, probably helping him a bit, and you can hear his flow is very much like that flow and cadence. But I don't mind his bars. I think they're fun. They're fine. After spinning this a few times, I haven't did my dive into Bishop Nehru, but I think I'm going to, because I know he still releases music. If I'm not mistaken, he's released more than one album, but 2 albums this year, and I'm going to check those out and see what he's doing now, because I know he's probably only improved since 2014 when this released. Next I have Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. This here is probably my favorite Kendrick project, while To Pimp a Butterfly is up there and maybe close to tied. I just don't know if I can get over the songs in this album and the way this album makes you totally feel immersed in the world of Kendrick Lamar, with how he makes this album feel like a complete movie. He's just got all-time bangers on this album, like Backseat Freestyle, Swimming Pools, Mad City, Compton, all-time bangers, and can't be overlooked. And the messaging on this album, with songs like Swimming Pools and Mad City, or on the outside, those songs kind of feel like a classic rap song, or a rap song that's not talking about anything super important. When you really listen to the lyrics and songs, they're really talking about deeper meanings. Swimming Pools being about how bad alcoholism is for you and how dangerous it can be, and Mad City being about the gang life not being as cool as people make it seem, and all these other messages that go along with this album. Super cool album. My favorite Kendrick project. Good Kid, Mad City. One of my favorite vinyls. Next I have... Ooh, this one's slipping out a little bit. Next I have Call Me If You Get Lost by Tyler, the Creator. Like I said earlier with Flower Boy, this might be tied for second with Igor for my favorite Tyler project. This was just super cool to hear him, after Flower Boy and Igor, going kind of into a pop-centric lane. He dove back into his old stuff just to prove that he can rap still and show that he's got it, and nobody can really tell him not to. It's him being egotistic and flaunting and telling you about his vacations and having fun, and it's just, he's got just some crazy bangers on here like Corso and Juggernaut. Some of his best rapping performances, Wilshire and Sorry Not Sorry, in my opinion, with this isn't the deluxe, but with the deluxe. Songs like Run It Up, Manifesto, some of my favorite Tyler songs, especially in the last 10 years or so. This one really never gets old for me. The track list is crazy. And yeah, Call Me If You Get Lost on vinyl, one of my favorites. Next I have Blonde by Frank Ocean. Well, this isn't the original vinyl, because the original vinyl is very limited and super hard to get. I just knew I needed this one on vinyl. This is my top 3 album of all time, or one of the top 3 albums of all time. It really did a lot for me when it came out emotionally, and this fusion of R&B and pop and rapping that Frank does is just unmatched, and I don't think anybody else could do. With songs like Solo, Pink and White, Ivy, White Ferrari, Godspeed. It's just, I can't say enough about this album, really. It's such a beautiful and crazy album that if you haven't listened to yet, you need to, because you're missing out. Next one, J. Cole, For Your Eyes Only. One of probably my favorite J. Cole album there is. This one I got for a gift as well. His definitely best executed concept album. Songs like Immortal, Deja Vu, Neighbors, For Your Eyes Only really just never get old for me. Some of his best rapping performances and production. This is probably the only J. Cole album that really stays in rotation for me. Most of them I've obviously listened to and liked some of them, but this is really the only one that I go back to most of the time. And last, but certainly not least, we got another Mac NPR Tiny Desk. I got this for a gift as well. Well, it's not an album, of course. It's super cool to have this on vinyl. There's only 3 songs on this. What's the Use, Small Worlds, 2009. But it's honestly really cool to hear, because these were the only times that he performed Swimming with that before him passing away. And this really gives me a lot of peace. And Mac being my favorite artist ever, this is probably my favorite NPR Tiny Desk performance there is. And I know it's one of the most popular ones, but one I just can never get enough of. One of my favorite looking vinyls I have too, with this clear blue. Oh, it's just beautiful. I love this. Shout out to the cousins for getting this one for me. And that's my vinyl collection. That's all the vinyls I own. And while it's not the most in the world you've seen, I'm sure, but it's a decent amount, and I'm working on getting it up there. It's probably one of my favorite hobbies right now, is just going to record stores and going through vinyls and collecting them. I'm working on another video right now as well. It's in the editing works of songs of the day throughout the week, so stay tuned for that one too. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and week and month and year. With it being only a couple more weeks left in December, I am excited for 2025 and what it has to come, and I hope you are too. Have a great one. Peace.